Hey, before we get into it, can we trace back and talk about the press conference this week?
It wasn't a lot of
Tank Lamont. I didn't get the energy. It did nothing for me. It added nothing to the fight for me. How did y'all feel about the press conference?
SP, take it away first.
No. Go ahead, Zittel.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, yeah. I had mixed feelings listening to Tank. Part of me appreciated him growing and maturing and starting to ask things about life beyond. But it was a weird juxtaposition because I see that Tank, he's turning 30 and searching for deeper meanings in life beyond just boxing and all that. And yet, like, still that, like, money's great. I mean, who doesn't like money? But still that, it's like he's on the path to finding out deeper things about himself and deeper things he wants out of life. But he still conflates money as basically everything. And, it's funny. He both admires Mike Tyson and Floyd Mayweather, but kind of, criticizes them. Like he kind of felt like I did about Mike fighting Jake Paul. But that it wasn't a good look. Mike shouldn't have done that. But then at the same time, he quoted Mike Tyson saying, legacy is whatever. It's a word you guys use, and then you go on the ground with nothing. There's a little bit of nihilism to what Tank's saying. And none of this really matters. It's just about getting the bag. And I wonder if he could think to himself, maybe that's part of your, not depression, because he's not depressed, but that's part of your, falling out of love with boxing. He called boxing trash. It's trash right now. And it's like, Tank, you're kind of saying the same things your supposed critics are saying. This is boring. You're going to win this fight. Lamont Roach knows what it is. What if what you're searching for is what people are asking of you, which is to put yourself in that position in life where you're challenged to the utmost and you're pushed to the limit, and maybe that will give you the fulfillment you're looking for. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't think that's the answer because he's not trying to march to the beat of what people want him to do. So he's searching for, you know what I mean?
I was just about to say, what if that's kind of what the roadblock that he's running to, where he wants to do something different from what the business is telling him to do. He may even, I respect Lamont, and I'm sure he respects Lamont to a degree. I mean, they're from the same area. But what if he looks at this fight as, this is a trash fight? I shouldn't be fighting Lamont. I'm just speculating here, 100% speculating. But, I know this from my own experience, that this game will wear you out, especially emotionally. I was just talking to Mikey Garcia about his retirement. He's like, man, I retired after my last fight, but people didn't know it. He said, I changed my Instagram thing to retired, and that's when people started to catch on to it. He said, but even when I changed his Instagram stuff or whatever to retire, he said people still didn't realize it, and then they started to catch on to it after time. But we talked about that 2.5 years that he spent on the sidelines, and he talked about the emotional damage that it did to him, made him not want to be a part of the game anymore. It pushed him, and then he said he's like, when the pandemic happened, he said that pushed me even more. It pushed me even further away from wanting to be in the sport, because it's such a long road, So, I know everyone has their opinions and feelings on a young Tank Davis retiring at 30, 31, 32. If you're able to make the money you want to make, if you're able to have the accomplishments that you want to have, at the end of the day, nobody takes those punches but you. Nobody makes weight but you. Nobody makes the sacrifices that we make. And at the end of the day, just like Bobby Brown say, it's his prerogative. It's not the norm. And most people, I think it's going to become a new norm where fighters are retiring at 35 opposed to 45. And I think if anything, you go from me retired, I think I was 33 when I retired. And then you got a Tank Davis that's saying, man, I'm out of here when I'm 30, 31. I think that that's going to become the new norm. So get used to it. Get used to these fighters. If anything, these fighters need to stay busy, and these fighters need to have the best fights that they can have. The business needs to put them in position so that they can have those fights, so that they can retire when they want.
What does it do to Tank's legacy if we never get a Shakur Stevenson, a Devin Haney, a T.O.?
That's an important fight for boxing, and I think that's an important fight for him.
Which fight?
I'm sorry, Shakur Stevenson specifically.
Okay.
And I know he gets very uneasy when people mention Shakur's name. I think that for him, and again, I read people well, so that's kind of my disclaimer. However, this is all speculation, but I feel that he may look at Shakur as, if there is someone that's gonna make a hard night for me, it's Shakur. And if it is someone that is going to bring people to the stadium that ain't rooting for me, it's Shakur. And I don't think that I think that he's not used to that kind of energy for someone to say, oh, he might get you. And I don't think he like that. I think he wants the world to know that he's the best. And I think that he wants the world to know he's the best without fighting someone else who could even be potentially the best. He said, forget him. I'm the best no matter what. You know, the fight needs to be made. The fight needs to be had for both those guys. And, you know, if legacy is important to either of them, I know for a fact it's important to Shakur. Shakur wants to be that guy. Tank, I think he feels like he is that guy, and nothing else matters. But I think that fight needs to be had, man. If they don't have that fight, I think it's definitely a stain on Tank's career specifically, because he'll be the one who's retiring without having that fight. And we've seen Shakur. We haven't seen him chase after Tank, but he has definitely tried to knock on that door multiple times. So we'll see.
Well, you know, of course, I like most people, I don't like that what has Shakur accomplished? And it's, well, to answer that question, Tank, more than anybody you've ever fought as a professional is what he's accomplished. And, you know, fighters, people can convince themselves of certain ideas in their head, like Tyson Fury saying along the lines of what Tank's thinking right now. I won the heavyweight title, so didn't care, didn't mean anything, right? But now that he's actually lost a fight, he's talking about how much it hurt him, and he does want the title back. And you think these things don't matter, but they probably do. You can't get as far as Gervonta's gotten as a fighter without having the pride of a champion. And, you know, he can convince himself, maybe it's true, only he will find out. But even Floyd convinced himself, I don't need the Pacquiao fight. But ultimately, he needed the Pacquiao fight. He didn't want to go through the rest of his life being asked, but you could convince yourself all you want that you don't care what people think, and a lot of that may be true, but on some level, you're a human being. You don't want that, because Antt asked a minute ago, what would this do to Tank's legacy? Unfulfilled potential. Like to go a Bronx tale. The saddest thing in the world is wasted talent, you know, and I get it. He hasn't wasted his talent. I totally grasp his point. I'm a kid who came from nothing in Baltimore, and now I'm a multi-millionaire, and like I've already won. Yes, you've already won, but you don't want to not realize your potential. And
you gotta go a step further. Yeah. He's got to go a step further. There's one. We all in life, we always have that next step, you know. And even for me, retiring after I fought Terrence, the next step in that process would have been moving up to 154 and things of that nature. There's always a next step. I decided that I was done taking steps in the boxing ring, you know. So for him, that next step and realizing his full potential, in my personal opinion, is Shakur Stevenson. I believe Shakur's recipe, if executed perfectly, if anything, gives Tank the longest night he's ever had in the boxing ring, thinking the most he's ever had to think in the boxing ring, being as reactive as he's ever had to be in the boxing ring, and it's gonna pull something out of him. I don't know what the deal is going on with him and Coach Cal. I've been hearing some weird stuff. If you guys want to get into it, we can. I really don't want to, but the thing that Coach Cal always says is, we looking for that guy that's gonna pull it out of him. We looking for that guy that's gonna pull it out of him.
Right.
Coach Cal reminds me so much of my dad, because that's how my dad always was too. So, you know, me and Coach Cal, like we had this understanding, and I know exactly what he means when he said we just need the fighter to pull it out of him. I can assure you that that they all want that fight. It just has to make sense. And I think that right now the business is telling them that it doesn't make sense. But I believe that it should make sense before he retires.
Is it possible the business is the one blocking the fight more than Tank Davis?
I think so.
Okay.
I think what Tank has grown up in has become his identity, for the sake of words.
Mm-hmm.
I am a pay-per-view fighter. I'm only fighting pay-per-view main event fights. Mm-hmm. And if you can't fit into that bill, then I'm not fighting you. And so you have the instance now where it's like, well, who is Lamont Roach? And what they're going to do is they're going to make Lamont something before the fight. You can do that with the Shakur, but I believe Shakur already is something. But we're going to downplay it. We're going to downplay it because that's what I learned from my big brother. That's what I learned from TMT and the business around me. And so that's how I'm going to move.
You know, when y'all talk about Tank, the only person, I don't know how it comes from you guys. You guys get it. The only person I ever hear people say that can beat Tank is Shakur. I've never heard nobody mention nobody else.
I stand on this full 100%. I'm not looking to see who's gonna beat Tank. Mm-hmm. I'm looking to see who's gonna who's gonna be in a fight with Tank that makes it look like, mm-hmm. just for the sake of word, that makes it look like Errol Spence Jr. versus Shawn Porter. Mm-hmm. That makes it look like Keith Thurman versus Shawn Porter. That makes it look like Canelo versus Triple G 1 and 2. You know, that makes it look like Fernando Vargas and Tito Trinidad. Like, that was an amazing fight. Both those guys deserve fights like that, and that's the kind of fight that they could have against one another. You know, I'm not looking for who's going to beat Tank. Who's going to beat Tank?
A great night of boxing instead of at any moment now, Tank go knock him out. That I feel like that's how we are watching Tank fights.
Even the fight with Shakur. Even the fight with Shakur. But the funny thing with the fight with Shakur is you'll be sold after 3 rounds that the whole fight could go the way that it's going. True Tank fans is gonna still be
no matter what time is.
Hey, listen, because I hate to talk about me, you know, but hey, it is what it is. My fight is so funny. My fight with Errol. Saw somebody, I think I told this story before on the podcast, but somebody ran into somebody in LA. They had gone to the fight. They said, man, after about 3 or 4 rounds, everybody that was in, he said, I was sitting around Dallas. He said, after about 3 or 4 rounds, people in Dallas started to be quiet. He said, after about 5 or 6 rounds, 7 rounds, everybody was quiet. He said it was only one guy that was like still standing up. He said his woman pulled his coat and was like, baby, sit down. Errol's losing, you know? So I feel like that's kind of how it could be with the Shakur and Tank fight, where you got a lot of people real high on Tank, and 5 or 6 rounds in, they start to say, okay, what's really going to happen? That punch could still land, but you're talking about landing it against probably the most defensive fighter in the game, and percentage-wise gets hit the least of any fighter in this world combined. You know what I mean? Like, you could combine some numbers and they don't match what Shakur does. What Shakur does is sexy. It's misunderstood.
Fellas, just to add one last point to it too. I think this still traces back to Floyd Mayweather, and it's always so interesting. It's always such a fine line discussing Floyd Mayweather, because he is the gift. He has been both the gift and the curse to boxing. And the gift because he's the best fighter of my lifetime that I've seen. A gift because there's no better fighter to gain knowledge from inside the ring, and a lot of things in the business side outside the ring from Floyd Mayweather. But also the curse, because I think a lot of like the Mayweather gospel is what leads to this kind of mind state from Tank. With the, if you're, I don't think Floyd realizes this, and I think if other retired guys do this from time to time, they leave you with they leave the young fighters with a negative viewpoint without realizing they're doing that. In addition to all that great advice about inside the ring and outside the ring, they start to tell you, like, nothing matters if you think about it. Like, no matter what you do, the fans are never going to give you credit. That's not even true. There's plenty of fans that'll give you credit. No matter what you do, the media will never give you credit. That's not, you're doing this, Sean, and you're right, but that's what I'm saying. Some of them do. Some of them don't. Some of them go up, hey, Sean, you were one. I loved all those fights you were in. You were amazing, and da-da-da-da-da. And then some fans on the internet, he was terrible. He charged in like a football player. It's not right to say, oh, they're all going to love you. And it's just as inaccurate to say they're never going to give you credit. You're telling them only care about the money. Don't, like, other people are always never going to give you credit. Like, it builds a little bit of a nihilistic worldview. And I think you're seeing it come to fruition with Tank with this stuff. What's it matter? Belts don't matter. Public perception doesn't matter. Legacy doesn't matter. Only the bag. And I got the bag. So exit stage left. And by the way, I don't really think Gervonta is going to retire, but I do think some of his mentality, it comes from that Floyd Mayweather legacy, both good and bad. It's the gift and the curse, because Gervonta wouldn't be as big as he is without the Floyd Mayweather co-sign. But part of why I think he's talking retirement soon and all he cares about is the bag is Floyd Mayweather. So,
hey, you know what though? One thing that struck me about what he said, I was very impressed with this. He said that, he wants to get counseling and therapy, but he is concerned about losing his dog because of therapy and counseling. I said, okay, young man, you know a little bit more than what most of us think or what
that's
you
what
know a little bit more
earlier, but I can appreciate him reaching for deeper things in life. And me, like that. That's him showing it right there.
Yeah. I've done counseling myself. You got to find a balance, but I'm a very balanced individual already. For someone like Tank, who may not be balanced, only knows how to turn this on and then turn that off and turn this on, not keep it all clicked up all at the same time. For someone such as him, he's right. Counseling could affect his could. But what we do know is a fight is a fight. And no matter how much you've gotten counseling and how much you've calmed yourself down and stuff like that, it's for someone such as him who's made for this, you think you can't turn it on until it's time to turn it on. And he would surprise himself. I would encourage him to get counseling now, even though I know exactly what he's saying. He's worried that, man, hey, listen, this dog that I got, I'm ready for it to go away. And I think he knows that, like he said, he's got a daughter or daughters, and he wants to be more gentle with them and all that kind of stuff. Very impressed with one of the interviews that I saw him do. A lot of insight, a lot of intelligence there. I think it's a fine line, but I think he can walk it. And I think that someone needs to encourage him to try to walk it. Might get another 5 to 10 years out of him if he learns how to walk it correctly.
So I counted. Oh, my bad. He counted that, Sean. Say, and that's where it's kill to be killed. You're running into psychopaths. So if you take a little bit off, that could be the little bit it takes for you to start taking L's.
Yeah.
You guys up in there by yourself. You got to be a warrior. That person's trying to kill you. It basically, that's how you got to look at it. So I worry. I have no problem with the young man retiring in the next 2 or 3 years. Like Zittel said, I don't believe it. I think it may be some contract things, and then he steps out and do the Canelo thing and fight as he wants. He's his own business. I think he becomes Gervonta Tank Davis.
And you know what's funny is it was a press conference about a fight. You said that the press conference didn't really do too much for you. And it was like, this was like the most that you got out of the whole experience was what was said after the fight. And it's all about, it ain't even about him fighting. It's about him not fighting anymore. You know what I mean? So, man, that's the funny thing about boxing, man. It's the funny thing about boxing.